All right, so what I did is did some screenshots and put some of the questions up here. Like I said earlier, I have not made up the quiz yet, so I don't know exactly which ones, but I'm going to kind of take you behind the scenes and let's just see what I would be thinking to put on the quiz. Let me see something here. All right, so it's going to be 4-1 and 4-2. I'm just looking for the problems that I assign on 4-1. 15 to 47. I recorded everything. Okay, I got a part B to this, so we'll get down to it. All right, so here's what I gave you. When I assigned 4-1, shh. All right, let's stop. Let's settle down now. Brayden, put your phone away. There's no reason to have your phone out. So I gave you 15 to 47 odds when I assigned 4-1. So let's take a look at some of these. So now, the ones that I'm going to do in here are not necessarily the ones that are going to be on the quiz. They could be, but they're not necessarily. Everybody got that? But they're going to be ones that are very, very close to it. I could ask you a couple of these. These should be really easy, like 15 to 20. All right, so let's just do all these. All right, so I could definitely give you something like that. They're pretty easy. Let's just do this first one. State the degree and leading coefficient. So what's the degree of that polynomial, number 15? It's 4, right, because you take the highest exponent, right, and that's the degree. Now, what is the coefficient with that highest exponent? It's a 5. Easy. No math involved. You just look at it. So the degree is this.
Can you put Cameron, Hayden, and Ella Marcus down the guidance, please?
Ella Marcus is not here.
Okay.
But Cam's here. I'll send her down.
Thank you.
All right, so everybody good with this? You want to do another one? Let's do 20. What about 20? What's the degree of number 20? It's 2 because that's the height. Even though they put it in a different order, that's why I picked 20. Right? Even though they put it in a different order, that's still the highest degree. What's the coefficient, the leading coefficient of it? It's 1 because there's a 1 in front of that y squared. Super easy. All right, what about 23? Did I give you 20? Yeah, I did. 23 to 28 says determine whether each number is a root of this. How do we do that? Just plug it in. That's exactly right. So you take a 0 and you plug it in. If the left side equals 0, then is that a root? Yes, it's a root, okay? If it's not, then it's not a root, okay? And that's your explanation. So your explanation is the work, all right? So if it was 3, I don't even know what these answers are, but if you put a 3 in there, 3 to the 4th minus 13 times 3 squared plus 12 times 3, do the math. If it equals 0, then yes, it's a root. If it doesn't equal 0, then no, it's not a root. Everybody with me on that? So I don't really have to do them, do I? As far as those are concerned? All right. I'm not going to ask you about that. Did we do these? Write a polynomial equation. Yeah, we did these. Yeah. So let's just do it off to the side here. Let's take this one right there. So what do I do to get a polynomial equation out of this? Do you remember? You do this, right? Equals 0. And then what do we do? X what? Minus that root. And then what else? X minus that root. Everybody got that? So what would this be? X minus negative 2 and x minus what? 3. Now what do we do? What is it? I can't, you're mumbling, I can't hear you. Okay, make this a plus 2, good. And then what else? Then what do I do? Give me one word. Foil, good. All right, everybody with me? So you just FOIL it, so let's FOIL that. What is that? X squared. Can you do the outside and the inside in your head at this point or not? Should be able to, right? Especially on this one. So what's the outside? Negative 3x. The inside is plus 2x.
Oh. I'm sorry, can I have Taylor
Okay.
Thank you.
I only have half my class here, and she's calling everybody else down.
It's very, very important.
I guess she meant you, right? Okay. All right. So what do we got again? Negative 3x plus 2x is what? Negative x. And then what's that? Negative 6 equals 0. There you go. So it says write a polynomial equation for each of the roots. I'm not going to ask you all the other stuff. This is what I'm more concerned about than anything. All right, so that's what you're going to do. Now, it gets a little more complicated. Look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. I really doubt I'll give you that on a quiz, give you 5 of them. But what would you have to do if I gave you all 5 of them? Do them all just like this. It'd be x plus 1 times x minus 1 times x minus 4 times x plus 4 times x plus 5, right? And you'd multiply them all together. It would take several steps to do that. What I would do, again, I'm not going to give you something with 5 of them in there. It's just going to take too long. But I could give you like 3 of them. All right, let's do that one. I tell you what, let's do this one. All right, since it's got some i's in there and you got more than 2 of them. All right, so that was real basic, that one right there. So what are we going to do here? I got some room to write underneath of this. Let's just do it under here. And now I can write in white. So, all right, so what would we do here? How would I write that? There's 3 of them. So I'm going to do this, set it equal to 0. What's this first one going to be? X what? Which is, right, so you can do that in your head, right? X plus 3. What's this going to be? Which is, all right, plus 2i. And then this one is just x minus 2i. Okay. I think we did this in class. This looks familiar. Did we do this together in class? I think we did. You could do this a couple ways. Here's what I would do if it was me. All right, I would do those first because it's a difference of 2 squares. All right, and if you look at it, they're both exactly the same except one's got plus, one's got minus. That tells you it's a difference of 2 squares. It's a very easy multiplication to do. But don't forget this one. So I'm going to keep that there. All right, let's do first outside, inside, last. Okay, so well, actually, we don't even have to do that. If you know it's a difference of 2 squares, you know that outside and inside are going to add up to 0. Look at it. I got x times negative 2i, and I got x times positive 2i. What are they going to do? They're going to cancel. They're going to add up to 0, correct? So I don't have to worry about the outside and inside. All I got to do is the what? First and the last. So let's do the first. That's super easy. That's x squared. What about the last? Let's see if we can do this in our head. You think you can do that in your head? So 2 times 2 you can do, right? 2 times negative 2. Negative 4. But what's I times I? I squared, which is I squared. What? Is it? Negative 1. It's not just 1. It's negative 1. Okay. So watch. 2 times negative 2 is... Shh, come on. Let's look up here and think. Let's think. Don't just let me do this, okay? You should be... Why are you guys worse today when you got a third of the amount of people in this class than you are normal days? Let's listen. So 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. I times I is I squared, which is negative 1. So it's negative 4 times negative 1, which is positive what? 4. You guys are looking at me like you don't know what I'm saying. You guys okay with that in your head or not? Okay, if you can't do that in your head, write it like this. 2i times what? Negative 2i, right? There's your 2i right there. There's your negative 2i. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. I times I is I squared. What's I squared? It's negative 1. Negative 4 times negative 1 is positive 4. There it is right there. But you should be able to do that in your head. Just write that down. And I'm fine with that. You're like, well, Mr. Hamrick, you always say show your work. Yeah, you are going to be showing your work. But there's some things you can just do in your head. All right, so that's one of them. Now what do we do? Yeah, just FOIL it, okay? So it's x times x squared, which is x cubed, and then x times 4x, which is plus 4x. Now, I would write all this out because it could get a little confusing. So plus what? 3x squared plus 12. We don't leave it like that. I mean, technically, it'd be okay. You got the right numbers and stuff, but it's not what? It's not in the right order. So let's put it in the right order. We just want to make it look nice. I would give this to you if you wrote that as an answer, but you should put it in descending order, just like you said. So the first one is what? X cubed. So I'm done with that one. What's the next highest power? 3x squared. So plus 3x squared. And then the next one, plus 4x. And then plus 12. And that, again, is equal to 0. I should have done that. This right here is your equation. And that's what they ask for, isn't it? Write a polynomial, what? Equation. Don't just write x cubed plus 3x squared plus 4x plus 12 and leave it like that, because that would not be an equation. All right, so you got to have it set equal to 0. So that right there is your answer. Everybody hear me on this? It's got to be set equal to 0. Don't just put this stuff in there, because that's not an equation. It's got to equal something. And we set it equal to 0. We good? So, yeah, I could get, half the quiz from that if I needed to. But I think there's more, isn't there? Didn't I have you go up to what, 47? Let's see what we have there. I think I have this, 41b. Now I got to get it all lined up. Yeah, that's good right there. All right, let's see. Will I pick any of these? Yeah. Now it says state the number of complex roots. How do I know how many roots I have just by looking at it without doing any work? Like, how many answers would I have? That's the roots. How many zeros? How many roots? How many answers? It all means the same thing. Where do I look? The degree, right. Okay, I look for the degree. All right, so that would give you 2 answers. That would give you 3 answers. That would give you 4 answers, and so on. Everybody got that? I probably won't ask that. I'll probably just say, find the roots. I don't even think I'm going to ask you to graph it. All right, so on the quiz, I'm just going to ask you to do this. Oops. Can't. Let's turn it to red. Just got to find the answers. Okay, you just got to solve for whatever the variable is. So, can I don't need all that other stuff. I don't know why. Yeah, see, that does that. Oh, I know what I could do. I could copy it, or, crop it. Let's see. Will that do it? Let me try something here. Let's hit crop. No. Anyway, that's all right. Watch. I'll just rewrite it. Somebody write this down. Which one of these do you want to do? Let's do 2 of them. Let's do one that looks kind of easy, then one that looks a little harder. 46, that looks too hard. Let's do an easier one. I said let's do an easier one, and then let's do a harder one. 42. Yeah, let's do 40. 40 or 41. Let's do 41. Oh, it's not just 9. Because it's plus or minus. Because it's plus or minus. It's plus or minus, right? Okay. So what about this one? Now this one's a little different, because what number if I square it and then add it to a 36, am I going to get a 0? Oh yeah? Negative 36? Negative 36 squared is some gigantic number. 6? 6 squared is 36, but 36 plus 36 is 0? Well, negative 6 squared is still going to give you positive 36. So does that mean it doesn't exist? Does it? Come on. You guys act like you haven't been taught anything in here.
72. So, what, 8 times?
Let's write it down. Can you remember it? Can you remember it? B squared plus 36. Okay, I got to scooch it down. So b squared plus 36 equals 0. All right, what would you do? Just think normal algebra. If you're in an Algebra 1 class, what would they do? They would subtract a 36 from both sides. Okay? So look, I've got b squared equals what? Negative 36. Now I'm going to get b by itself, so I got to get rid of the squared. How do I do that? Square root it. So I usually don't show it on that side. I know it's going to just cancel out. But I will do this. Plus or minus what? Square root. No. It's plus or minus the square root of negative 36. The square root of negative 36 is not 6. No. But it's a negative 36. It's a negative 36. It's inside of a square root. Thank you. Finally, somebody said it. Okay. Look, the square root of negative 1 is I. Right? You can't just take the square root of 36. So watch. I'm going to show every step. It sounds like you need it. Okay, so I'm going to show every little step here. Put plus or minus, square root. Watch this. It's 36 times negative 1. Would you agree? Everybody's watching. Goodness. To think I was looking forward to an honors class today. I think it was better in my CP geometry class. I said it. I mean it too. So look, I got plus or minus. Watch, I'm showing you every little step. We are taking the quiz on Monday. I don't care how you're behaving. Well, I do care, but you're still going to take it. So look at this. See what I did? Right? Negative 36 is 36 times negative 1. Then I broke it up. So what do I have here? I got plus or minus. What's the square root of 36? It's 6. I already got the plus or minus there. What's the square root of negative 1? It's I. So that's what b is equal to. It's plus or minus 6i. All right? That makes sense, doesn't it? Because a real number would not work here, right? We thought about it, right? We tried several different things. Negative 6 doesn't work. Positive 6 doesn't work. So it has to be something that's not a real number. And sure enough, we got an imaginary number, okay, complex number, 0 plus. There you go. Make sense?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was supposed to be the easy one. Now you're making me nervous. All right, let's go back up. Let's find another one. Let's find a medium one. We got some time. 44? Okay. We can do that. Somebody write it down so I remember it, because I won't remember it when I move it. 6c. Make it an x instead of a c. I hate writing c's. All right. 6x squared minus 3x, or cube minus, you got it written down? Okay. I just asked him to write it down, not to solve it. Okay. 6x cubed. Sam, let's go. 6x cubed. Okay. All right. What's always the first thing you want to do when you see something like this? Look to see, because it doesn't always happen, but sometimes it does. Before I start worrying about factoring or moving stuff over or anything like that, it is factoring, but it's a certain kind of factoring. What kind of factoring? I should just retire.
Don't give up on me. Not yet.
Because I don't know if I'm making any impact at all. Look, do they have something in common with each other?
Oh, no, 3.
Okay, they got a 3 in common with each other. That is true. What else do they have in common? An x. So what are we going to do? And what do we call that? It's the what? It's the greatest common factor. Okay. So we're going to factor out a 3x. Let's see what's left over. What do we have here? 2x squared minus what? I'm dividing. I'm taking this and dividing by 3x. What do I get?
X.
An x. Okay. Take this divided by 3x. What do I get?
Negative 9x. Or negative
9. 45 divided by 3? It's 15. Is it an x? No, because that x divided by this x is just a 1. Okay? What do we do with this? Got to factor it, right?
Yeah.
So I've got a 3x. I need to factor. Remember how we do that when we have a number out in front like this?
Oh, look, divide.
Well, no. I'll just show you. I'm tired of asking. All right, so here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to factor this. We have a little method to do this. You could just do a guess and check, right? You could just put two sets of parentheses and say 2x times x, 5 times 3, 3 times 5, 15 times 1, 1 times 15, right? You could do that if you wanted to. And it would work. It probably wouldn't take too long because there's not that many factors of 2. There's not that many factors of 15. So you could sit there and guess and check. Or, do you remember the method that we decided to do? 2 times what?
30.
It's negative 30. Is any of this at all familiar to you?
I wasn't in my school.
Well, it was on the videos, though, wasn't it?
I was in Jamaica with this one.
They don't have service in Jamaica.
No, I was in the city.
You're in the city. That means you should have more. It means you should have more of a chance to get.
No, city on the
All right, so what happens? What if you add them up? What should it add up to be? No. It's negative 1.
Wait, what?
You look right here. We did this, right?
Oh. It's coming back to me.
Okay. So you look right here. Okay. So you multiply the 2 and the negative 15. That's negative 30. And then these two numbers multiply to be negative 30. And the same two numbers add up to be the middle coefficient, which is negative 1. All right. Now, what's going to give you this? What are we going to use? I got 30. Two numbers that multiply by 30, and they add up to be negative 1. I'm definitely not using 30 and 1, right? Not using 15 and 2. 6 and 5 would work, okay? So which one's got to be the 6? Which one's got to be the 5?
The first one was wait.
Well, I'm sorry. I didn't say that right. Which should be your negative? Which should be your positive? The negative 6 should be your, or the 6 should be your negative, and the 5 should be the positive. Is it really necessary to do that? All right, I'm trying to gain some self-control here. So these are the two numbers that work right here. So what do I do with those two numbers? What I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this coefficient as negative 6 plus, or negative 6x plus 5x. 6x plus 5x, yeah. So this stays the same. And I'm going to write negative 6x plus 5x minus 15. Now, you might have been able to just do this and just guess which numbers work. You might have been able to do that quicker than this. All right, but this works every time, so let's just do it like this. It's good for you to remember. So now what we're going to do is this. We're going to go, now let's do this. I'm just ready to give up and just give you the quiz on Monday and not even finish this. But it wouldn't be fair to everybody else. So just please, okay, just grow up a little bit and quit joke. You act like little girls, like giggling all the time. Can't stand that, especially when boys do it. It's just so irritating. All right. So what we're going to try to do is look at these. We're going to do something with this. What do we do with that? Is there anything in common with these two? Look. See, this is what I'm going to do. What's in common with this? A 2x is in common with this. So if I factor out a 2x from this, I'm left with an x. If I factor out a 2x from this, I'm left with a what? A negative 3. Put a plus. What's in common with this? Well, there's a 5. There's a 5 in common. Okay, 3 doesn't go into 5x. All right, there's a 5 in common. And so factor out the 5. What do I get? X what? Minus 3. So what I just did, this is by grouping. Remember we talked about that? So now, look at this. What's in common with these two? An x minus 3. So factor out an x minus 3 from this. What do I get? 2x. plus, factor out an x minus 3 from this, I get a 5. Now, that was a long way to go. I agree. All right, but it works every time. You could, again, like I said earlier, you could have just put a couple parentheses there and just guessed. I made those kind of small. You could have said what times what equals 2x squared. Well, you could have a 2x and a 1x. What times what is negative 15? Well, you could have had maybe like negative 5 and positive 3. Does that work? Nope, that's 6x minus 5x. That doesn't work, right? So then you could have said, all right, well, what are we going to do? Well, let's just switch that 5 and 3. Let's put that 3 right there. And let's put the 5 right there. Does that work? Yeah. Outside is 10x minus 3x is 7x. That doesn't work, all right? So let's try something else. Let's just try changing let's change this and this. Let's see if that works. So plus and a minus. Let's see if that works. That's negative 10x plus 3x. And that's negative. See what I'm doing? I'm just trying a bunch of different things. Okay? And they're not working. All right? So that's an okay way to do it. If you keep messing around with it, you might be able to come up with something. All right, you might, let's put that 5 back where it was. Okay, so what if I put the 5 here, this time made it positive and made that a 3? Does that work? Negative 6x plus 5x, yeah, negative 1x, it works. But we had to try like 3 or 4 times. Done? So this is what we're going to do. You guys are so frustrating today. I was actually looking forward to this. I really was. So look, all this stuff is being multiplied and it's equal to 0. So now what we do is we set them all equal to 0. And then we set this equal to 0. And then we solve for x. Divide by 3, x is 0. Add a 3, x is 3. Subtract a 5, divide by 2, x is negative 5 over 2. So those are your roots. That's what they ask you to find. Way up here, says find the roots. Here's your formula. That's what you have to do. All right, let's go to the next section. That was all 4-1. How do you know when? What do you mean? Well, because it says find the roots. So they gave you the equation. They gave you this, set it equal to 0. You just had to be able to look at it. You have to recognize that you're going to find a greatest common factor, right? You just have to know a bunch of ways to factor. So what's the only thing I could do with this? The only thing I could do is pull out a 3x. Then you look at this. Okay, I got to factor it. It's a trinomial. I've got a couple ways I could factor a trinomial. This is a tried and true method. Okay, this method, doing all this stuff with the grouping, it'll work every single time. If you wanted, you could just guess and check, right? But sometimes that takes you longer to guess than it does to actually go through this stuff right here. All right, so watch the video when I taught this. Okay, we taught how to factor trinomials, and we did all this stuff over here. Okay, you guys are acting like it's the first time you've ever seen it, but we did it. We had homeworks on it. Okay, so you've got to know how to do those. So make sure you know how to do those. All right, that's all I'm going to say about that. So now let's go to section 4.2. Pull that right there. Let's put this here. Let's put this here. All right. Let's do this. All right. completing the square. Remember that stuff? We got 10 minutes, so we can do a few completing the square problems. So I'll give you at least a couple of those. So there's plenty of stuff in here to be able to give you 10 questions on this quiz. Let's just do this one first, okay? That's a little simpler. Sam, write that down so I can. So make it x. X squared minus 2x minus 24. Can we remember that? X squared minus 2x minus 24. Okay. Let's do it in blue. So x squared, what is it? Minus 2x minus 24 equals 0. Okay. So we have to solve. This is different. Well, is it different? It's not really different. It's just another way to do it. Solve by completing the square. All right, so this is what we do. I'm just going to show you. I'm not going to ask you any questions because I'm just not. So watch. First thing we do is take this minus 24, put it to the other side. We're going to leave a blank right here, and it's going to be plus. I'll show you why in a second. And I leave a blank right there. I need to fill in the blank, all right, or complete the square. That's why we call it completing the square. I'm going to make this into a perfect square. If I move this over here, I get a 24 because I added a 24 to both sides. I got to figure out what's going to go here. How do I do that? I take the middle coefficient, I divide it by 2, and then I square it. Remember that? Well, I taught it. I don't know what else to say. So that's negative 1. What's negative 1 squared? It's positive 1, right? Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. So I'm going to add a 1 right here. Can't just do it to the left side. I also do it to the right side. So I add a 1 to the other side. By doing this thing right here makes this into a perfect square. So what I can do is I can write it like this. That's going to be a 25. What's this going to be right here? It's a perfect square. So it's going to be x, and I always choose this sign right here because that's always going to be positive. This could change depending on your problem, right? So minus 2x, I'm sorry. So I put that sign, and then how do I find what goes right here? I got two ways. I could just take the square root of that, or I could take half of that. It's going to be the same exact number. What's the square root of 1? It's just 1. What's half of 2? It's 1, right? Either way you do it, it's always going to be the same number. Because how did we get to this? We got it by taking half of it, then squaring it, correct? All right, so that's how we can go back. So this right here, we turn that into a perfect square so it looks like this. All right? Now, how do you get rid of that squared? Square root both sides. So I've got x minus 1 equals, if I square root this, it goes away. But now I got to square root this, but I put a plus or minus in front of it. What is that? Plus or minus what? Just 5. One more step, and you're almost done. Not quite, but almost. I got to add a 1 to both sides. So I put x equals. I usually like to put that 1 in front of the plus or minus. You don't have to, but it looks a lot nicer. Most people do. So I put 1 plus or minus 5. Don't leave your answer like that. If this was like a square root or something, there's nothing else you could do with it. But these are real numbers. They're integer numbers. We can add them up. So what do we get? We get 1 what? Plus 5, which is 6. And then we get what? 1 minus 5, which is negative 4. So here's how I would write the answer. X is equal to, it doesn't matter really what order you put it in. I'll put it in the smallest to the biggest. And then that would be your answer. So that's what this is. If you wanted to check, you could check. Put in a negative 4. It'll make that left side 0. Put in a 6. It'll make that left side 0. Right? Those are easy to check. Sometimes you get some really funky numbers, and it's really difficult to check. All right? You just kind of have to know if you got it right or not. All right, let's do one that's a little more complicated. That's not complicated, no. We just had a quiz on this in my Algebra 2 class. Let's do one with a quadratic formula, okay? You could do those yourself. We did a few of those in class anyway. Which one of these do you want to do? Pick one. But this time we're going to use the quadratic formula. Pick one. Let's do 23. Remember it. 4x squared minus 2x plus 9 4x squared, 4x squared minus 2x, what was it?
Nathaniel, Jalen Littlejohn,
Plus 9 equals 0.
Richardson,
Plus 9 equals 0. All right, we're using the quadratic formula. Okay, the quadratic formula. So you got to know it. What is the quadratic formula? X equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. It's got to be memorized. You guys act like I haven't taught this. Did I teach this? I'm going to go back and look at the videos. Okay. All right, yeah, we did this because remember I said this? Put the a, b, and c here. Yeah, I remember doing it with you guys. So what is the a? It's 4. I got to do this quick because time's running out. B is negative 2. C is 9. So now we just plug it into this formula right here. So x equals negative b, the opposite of b. What is b? B is negative 2. What's the opposite of negative 2? Positive 2. Plus or minus square root. And then we do this stuff. We go b squared. Let's just do this in our head. You can do that. You can square that in your head, can't you? What's negative 2 squared? 4 minus 4 times a. What is the a? That's 4 times c, which is 9. That's all over what? 2 times 4, because it's 2a. And now it's just a matter of simplifying this. That's all it is. So I've got 2 plus or minus square root. What do we got here? We got 4 minus, 9 4 is 36, 72, 144. Is that right? Do that math. Who's got a calculator? Did I do that right? What I just said.
Negative 4 times 4 times 9.
16 times 9. 16 times 9. I was right. Negative 144 over what? 8. Simplify it. 2 plus or minus square root. What's that going to be? Negative what? 140 over 8. Let's simplify 140. Well, 10 goes into it, right? So watch this. 14 times 10. What's 14? 2 times 7. What's 10? 2 times 5. So look at what we got. I got 2 times 2, which is 4 times 5. Who?
Is this the music room?
No, it's not.
Sorry.
Okay, so watch. First of all, what happens to that negative inside the square root? Turns it into an I. So I've got 2 plus or minus. Now watch very carefully. Remember what I said 14 times 10 was, or 140? It was 4 times 5 times 7. Or just, what's 5 times 7? So it's 4 times 35. And then you got an I out there over 8. Let's keep going. Equals 2 plus or minus. Let's do this in our head. What's the square root of 4? It's 2. And then square root of 35. Again, you got the I out here over 8. Now look, both of these things are being divided by 8. This is over 8, this is over 8. So really, what happens here? 2 over 8 becomes what? 1 over 4. This 2 over 8 also becomes 1 over 4. So now we're finally ready to write our answer. So it's going to be 1 plus or minus square root of 35 over 4, and then put the I out here, and that's how you do it. So it's quadratic formula. The first part's super easy, but sometimes it simplifies very easily. Sometimes in this one, you got to do quite a few things. All right, this is why it's good to have a good Algebra 2 background, because this is stuff we harped on over and over and over again in Algebra 2. All right, so but I taught it to you in here. So even if you don't have a great Algebra 2 background, I did teach it in here, but you're going to have to learn it though. All right, you can't just say, well, I didn't have Algebra 2, or I didn't do very well in Algebra 2, or whatever. You just got to know how to do it. And I taught you everything you needed to know to be able to do this problem in here in this class. All right, that should be good enough. All right, that's your review. Your quiz is on Monday. I sure hope you study for it. It sounds like from today you need to study for it. So I would put some time into it, do some problems, do some odd problems because you know what the answers are, right? That's what I would do.
Is there any homework to it?
All right. So your only homework in here is to review for this quiz.